This is Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for Inside.com. I'm going to keep doing that every time I say what it is.
You're just like you're gonna start doing it in like fan sided meetings. You're just gonna be like, I'm lead writer.
Gonna do that in Phoenix. Gonna start talking to a third person here very soon, so that's gonna be really awkward for the entire show. But I'm joined today by a man who has eaten well done steak before. I don't know if he puts ketchup on it, even though he likes ketchup. A man who gets all of his counseling from the man who washes dishes, uh, and a guy who is the GOAT of Fansided.com, Cody Williams, content director. Still waiting. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. At least when I get the well done steak with the ketchup, I at least leave a tip. So like that's all, it's all you can do if you're gonna operate like that. Although don't come in before closing.
Yeah, don't be a Chet Miller. Low key though, like Chet Miller and then John Francis Daly look a lot like my brother-in-law. So me and the Arizona State podcast were saying, is this a Ballerini fest?
Who could say? Maybe it's autobiographical or biographical, whatever.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, me and the Arizona State podcast last night we watched Waiting while we were dog sitting, and the night before we finished up Men in Black, and she's like, I want to watch Men in Black too. I'm like, I don't think we need to. Let's go on a high note.
Hey, Men in Black 2 is not half bad. Men in Black
Okay.
3 is god awful. Men in Black
Okay.
2, solid.
I'll keep that in mind. Maybe show one out and we'll watch this. But like, yeah, watching Waiting. I worked in a restaurant in college. You worked in restaurants too. But there's a lot of things in that movie that came out over 20 years ago, which was really shocking to me.
I mean, like, it's gross, don't get me wrong, and like it turns up the grossness to 11, but like a lot of like just the general vibes are very, very accurate to what it is like working in a restaurant. Like there's always at least one server who's just persistently every day angry at everything and is like about to
Yes.
like blow a gasket. There's like a cook, there's like people in the kitchen, like myself, are just pure degenerates and like terrible human beings. And like there's a lot of accurate character descriptions. And oh, and let's not forget like the Ryan Reynolds, like the cool guy that everyone thinks. And like at the end of the day, you just kind of work at a restaurant. So how cool really are you?
He had some really weird sideburns. They're like growing into his ears. It must be how they grow up there in Canada, or whatever. But you got the people like making the food. Some of the people, not just the degenerates, but some people are probably out on parole back there for
Oh
like
yeah,
a
100%. I mean,
uh
no, I'm not blowing up anyone's spot, not gonna say where I worked at a restaurant, but there were some people with questionable citizenship that worked in the kitchen with me.
that's fair. And then also half the waiting staff's dating the other half the waiting staff
Oh
too.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but it's basically just one big like private Tinder. Like that's what it really boils down to.
Bing bing. Yeah, that's what that is. I will also say this. Yeah, some people don't tip, but probably the biggest discrepancy from the movie is like most restaurants, like it's not that gross behind there. They know they can't afford that. Everybody's
Yeah.
pretty much on their P's and Q's. They're like, no one's just dropping food on the floor, but like
Yeah, there no I've never seen anyone spit on someone's food. I've not like
no,
that's not something I've witnessed.
no, no, not at all. But when he's back there behind the kitchen with Brent Venables, we obviously false started. He false starts the time. So our first 15 is I'm trying, Jennifer.
Yeah, he's trying, brother.
Dude, he's like David Koechner owning a shenanigans. I will fire you.
I will fire Yeah, so Brent Venables, Oklahoma, they're the latest to cancel their spring game, and that's where we're starting. Like the cancellation of the spring game, bad look. We've talked about how that's a bad look for fans. It's a bad look for the program. It's a little brother program type of deal. I can't stand it. Then after that, Brent Venables comes out with a quote about being the defensive play caller once again this year. And he had this to say, quote, "Why am I calling the defense? Because I'm good at it. I've acted like my job is on the line for 30 years." End quote. Look, man, that fake tough guy stuff works a lot better when you didn't just go 6-6 in the SEC. Like this is it feels like he's trying to believe he's still at Clemson. He's trying to believe Oklahoma is still Oklahoma, and neither of those things are currently true.
No, you can't do this at Oklahoma. You can't do this at Clemson. You can't even do this at your alma mater of Kansas State. All three of those programs are just simply too good. You've won, what, 6 games in 2 of your 3 years at Oklahoma. You went to a program. Yes, you're switching over to the SEC from the Big 12, but you were a top three program all time. Back in the day, it was Oklahoma and Nebraska who ran the Big Eight. Texas had all the resources, but it's kind of always been low-key dysfunctional. Not so
Mhm.
much right now, but it's kind of been in their
Yeah.
nature. Kind of like Florida a little bit.
Yeah, like just kind of the wild card in the equation for more or less.
But like I wrote about this for fansided.com. Joe McCoy, like one of our peers, maybe a little bit older than us, Oklahoma legend, played
Yes.
for Bob Stoops, stud for the Buccaneers, played his whole career there, played for the Raiders a little bit, but like left the Buccaneers right before they got good. This is a guy who's just like, man, I just feel bad for the guys in the practice squad who are helping us get better. This is an opportunity for them to like play in front of their fans, in front of their most glorious football cathedral. This is an opportunity for everybody to show how much better they've gotten from all those bowl game practices and spring practice. You're losing fans, and this is a total. You're right. This is a total little brother move because you're just doing what Texas did, and Texas can do whatever the hell it wants because it's made the playoffs last year's. I don't agree with it, but at least with Steve Sarkisian, he's like, okay, I have a point. I have a method to my madness. We're going to try something new. Maybe they owe themselves to do that. I don't agree with it, but they can do that. Oklahoma, how about get back to winning 9 games a year?
Yeah, I mean, like you look at it from a Texas perspective, like they're actually like I don't agree with any of the transfer portal tampering stuff. We'll touch on that in here in a bit, but like I don't agree that that's the reason that any of these programs are canceling spring practice. If you're Texas, though, there actually might be somewhat more of an advantage than a lot of these programs canceling their spring games because your offense is probably going to look a lot different with Arch Manning than it's going to look than it did with Quinn Ewers. And maybe you don't let Ohio State see that before week one. You don't let them know what that's going to look like or anything like that. Like there is somewhat of a competitive advantage. And like you said, they're coming off 2 straight college football playoff appearances, 2 straight college football playoff semifinal appearances at that. So they can, like you said, they can do whatever they want. On top of that, they have earned the goodwill that you know that Texas is going to be good. Oklahoma has something to prove in their spring game if they were having it. Like they have to prove, hey, look, this is going to look much better than it has in previous years. Like this is going like we are starting to turn this around. Maybe you're not, but even still, it's an opportunity for you to show that. And to Gerald McCoy's point, I hadn't even considered what it means to some of the players like lower on the roster, like a chance to show yourself, prove yourself, maybe earn a spot like in the rotation or even a starting spot. Like I hadn't even considered that part of the equation, but that's another factor in it that just makes like Oklahoma look worse. And I think the fact that almost like of these, like we talked about Matt Rule in Nebraska, and like they haven't exactly covered themselves in glory in this whole ordeal. Brent Venables is right up there with Matt Rule in my mind because not only is he doing that, but then he's stubbornly like just he seems like he's doubling down both on that and how he's handling this program again and again and again. And that's probably why he's going to get fired pretty soon.
Yeah, thank God the Oklahoma City Thunder are really good. But like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. On a 67 win pace, I found out yesterday,
yeah,
which wild.
yeah. Then the Sooners men's basketball team very much on the fence of making the tournament.
The tournament.
Uh, but like Norman's not that far away from Oklahoma City. This isn't like it's a college town. It's kind of more of like a suburb, but it's not like middle of sticks nowhere like
Mhm.
some of these other programs are where there's nothing to do. Like you can just go to the big city and do whatever. People, there's a lot of people that live in this region, but like you're denying the great people of Oklahoma their favorite thing in the world, which is Oklahoma Sooners football. And
I
also,
was
you went out and
sorry.
got you go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, they can go into the city and do other stuff. What they actually just want to do is watch Sooners football. Like that's
Yeah.
the number one thing on the list.
Yeah, I know, man. Like there's other things to do. You could like Bricktown or whatever, but like it's like you have John Mateer, you got Ben Arbuckle to come over here. I forget who they brought in to be their defensive coordinator to replace, or is he still calling the plays? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean it's a figurehead if they are like because Venables is still calling the plays. So like I have a really hard time remembering coordinators when they're not calling plays, frankly.
I think that's totally fair, but like this is the fake tough guy thing. It's like it's the kid like talking smack through a fence, and then you bring him out to the field, and they're just gonna beat the snot of them like uh God, what's his name? Kenny Powers and his brother did to those kids back in Shelby.
Yes, exactly.
Just tag teaming bros in Western North Carolina.
All the Vixens.
But yeah, I'll definitely be talking about Oklahoma later, for similar reasons. But I think the bigger, larger point is I think Oklahoma is going through an identity crisis right
Mhm.
now. I
Yeah.
think more so than pretty much anybody in the Power Four. I think Oregon's at the point where like they got to make a decision
Mhm.
because what they're doing now is not going to work long term in the college football playoff. Oklahoma's got to figure out who they want to be in the new SEC. And I think Michigan's at one too. I think Michigan is at least they're doubling down on who they are.
Mhm.
And for better or worse, at least you're trying that route. I feel like Oklahoma is just all over the place with what they're doing under Brent Venables. It's such a departure from Bob Stoops and even Lincoln Riley.
No, I mean, you raise a really good point about the identity crisis because you have Brent Venables, obviously a defensive-minded head coach, but and this isn't his fault totally, to be very clear, but he took over a program where the defense was dog water. Like he took over a Lincoln Riley program, which we've seen Lincoln Riley's defenses with Alex Grinch at Oklahoma and then at USC. Obviously not in a good place when Brent Venables took that over. But as they've tried to make the defense better, the offense has suffered. So you bring in John Mateer and Arbuckle, and like you look at this and like maybe that works, but I still don't know if it's the panacea for the offense. And then the defense is still not at the level that he had Clemson's defenses at. So like you're kind of stuck in this middle ground where you're just like maybe better on offense, but I still don't think you're going to be an elite offense. Like I would say maybe you're top 40 in the country, but definitely not top 25 in the country in terms of offense. And probably the same on the defensive side of the ball. So like it feels like, especially in the SEC, you're just setting yourself up to go 6-6 again. Like it feels like it's weird to say that about Oklahoma because for most of our lives, Oklahoma's been pretty damn good and like a pretty consistent 9 to 11 win team, if not more. And now we're in a spot where 6-6 just feels like the norm for what they are right now.
Yeah, another program that's kind of going through it too is Wisconsin with
Mhm.
Luke Fickle, and look at two guys who got grossly overpaid for doing nothing. Like, so why job security there? It's the same thing with like Luke Fickle. Like, I know defense. I feel that like okay, a lot of other guys like have had an identity of what they want to do offensively. He's like, well, I'm going to try the air raid Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just you got to pick one thing and kind of stick with it. And I think it just kind of goes to show it just comes to how strong you build your staff.
Mhm.
And there have been guys that have come and gone from the Oklahoma program where it's just like one thing after another. Obviously, Cale Gundy had to go, but you fire Seth Luttrell. These are two Oklahoma alums.
Mhm.
DeMarco Murray, another one, got courted very heavily by Penn State. You're kind of wondering, like, at some point, like, when's the Oklahoma Regents like gonna come out and be like, we're done with this Joe Castiglione syndicate, if you will.
No, I mean, absolutely. And like I think that Brent Venables is definitely at the forefront of that because, like, you talk about the fake tough guy stuff with him, and like, I think the biggest problem is he doesn't realize it's fake tough guy. Like, I think he thinks he's an actual tough guy, which is a real tough spot to be in, especially as like if things continue to go south. I'm like, I don't want to speak too ill of Brent Venables, but like, I feel like that's a recipe for him to really start showing his ass, quite frankly.
Yeah, and then it's also like you've already broke. He didn't do it, but like Josh Heupel doesn't ever want to come back.
Yeah, I mean, not that's not Venables' fault, but it is probably Castiglione's fault to some degree.
Stoops. I mean, yeah, Castiglione is Stoops, Riley, and Venables for everybody at home. Like
Yeah.
that is so. But Oklahoma is going to be fascinating. Maybe they can prove us all wrong here. Maybe this will work out for them. They did go 10-3 with Dylan Gabriel. Maybe that'll be the case with John Mateer. Maybe we show our ass here, but
Hey,
like they still got to play a very tough schedule and a much tougher conference. And
toughest schedule in the country I saw this morning. Yeah.
is it really? Yeah, because yeah, like last year theirs is incredibly tough, and then it flips. Maybe they got to play like in Knoxville now, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Connolly did his SP plus strength of schedules, and Oklahoma's number one with a bullet. Like it's not even really that close.
And we're going down, down early round, and Sugar going down swinging. I don't know if Dabo Swinney has ever heard of Fall Out Boy, but he does more than shoot hoops and turn left. He spits gospel about spring games. Cody, I know you got a quote of the ages from the delightful Dabo Swinney and the godfather of jock jams.
Look, man, we're speaking too nicely about Dabo Swinney these days, but like this is an all-timer quote that I truly love. Like it's when Dabo's at his best, and like honestly makes me think that Dabo's just kind of in his bag with this Clemson team going into 2025. But he said, quote, we're going to have a spring game. Whether you have a spring game or not, it's going to be tampering. Ain't nobody going to look at the spring game and go, "Oh yeah, boy," end quote. And I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense, but I think his point is that like tampering's going to happen regardless of if we have a spring game, which is kind of what I was alluding to, saying like I don't agree with that. Like, do you think like not having a spring game is going to stop anyone from wanting a player who's good? Like that's just not like if they want the player, they're going to go after the player. That's just the world we live in college football right now. Dabo knows that, and like he gets into the transfer portal and becomes a transfer portal expert. Like it happened overnight, and you love to see it. But like I do like this mentality from him. Like I'm not going to be scared of something that's going to happen inevitably and make excuses or something. Like he's just taking the bull by the horns, and like it really does feel like I said it jokingly, but like it really does feel like Dabo knows what he has this season, and he's in his bag a little bit about it.
Oh, 100%. Dabo Swinney being self-aware. Welcome to this world.
I know I feel uncomfortable talking about it honestly.
So yeah, you're totally right in the sense that he is very confident about this year's team. And I also feel that like because his program had not really been an active participant in the transfer portal for the first essentially Olympia that it existed.
Yeah,
He's like, take it or leave it. If you want to go, go. That's fine. We'll put you in a position where you want to go to a better team, but you're not coming back unless you're a Hunter Johnson for some reason. But
that's right. I
uh,
forgot about that.
yeah, I remember talking with Mark Carmen in the Chicago office because like he was thinking about going to Northwestern. Like this guy's good. And
Well, let me assure you, not the case.
no, but it's like I appreciate people who like approach things from like a level of like, I'm not operating out of fear or whatnot. He's like, yeah, I know how talented my team is. There may be some guys who aren't going to make the cut, who aren't going to make the rotation or whatever. And I'm talking about Dabo Swinney. It's like very ethereal right now in my background. I wish I could go
Yeah.
back there for
You're
vibes.
ascending as you talk about Dabo. The universe is just
Uh,
aligning.
we're playing on like a different turf or whatever. I guess we're just gonna have to roll with this. Maybe like it's really bad, isn't it?
It's just like it's just like one ray of sunlight coming through the corner. Like there's nothing you could even do about it. So no worries, man.
No, no, I know it's you can only set up somewhere places where you're at home or away or anything like that. Maybe becoming a deity here.
That's right.
Uh, my name is my name is Saint Dab, the patron saint of the portal.
That's yeah, of course. That's what we always said about old
Uh,
dad.
oh, I know it's unbelievable here, but this is good. I think he's got a very talented team. I think he knows that how good Cade Klubnik's going to be this year.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can get this. There we go.
Yeah, and
If I do this, like the camera, there we go. I'm gonna talk like this for the time being until my hand falls asleep.
love it, dude. But
It's
no,
it.
like to your point about Dabo and Clemson, like you look at this and I think that Dabo like handling his business in this confident manner, it's obviously a testament to how he feels about this roster, but I also think it's a testament to his confidence in how he's handled his program. Like, of all the criticisms we can levy against Dabo and the Clemson program over the past few years, since they've kind of fallen off from their national championship level, I don't think one of those is a culture thing. Like, you can't
No,
ever criticize the Clemson culture and like I go back to when Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State were going into the college football playoff, and he was basically saying, like, look, if a guy comes into my office and says, hey, I want to enter the transfer portal, I'm going to help him out. that really feels like a Dabo Swinney thing at Clemson. Even though he wasn't utilizing the transfer portal, he cares about these kids. He doesn't recruit these kids to for his own personal gain. Like I don't think Dabo would still be coaching, quite frankly, if he didn't care about these kids to some degree. Like every college football coach who is worth his salt cares about the kids more than their own personal glory. And like Dabo is kind of the poster child for that.
I mean, I think everybody cares about their players except for Hugh Freeze. I don't think he gives a rat's ass about his
Look, I
guys.
said any coach worth his salt. And like I don't think Hugh Freeze is ever going to win a national championship, and that's probably one of the reasons why.
Let's just hope he beats cancer.
That's right. Yes.
Oh God, yeah. So I feel like the guy like the Guinness Book of World Records who like was holding his hands up out of devotion to like a out of like a Hindu god or something like that. So if my hand like becomes like cooked in rot, then that's great. It was overcast yesterday, and now it's like it's beaming sunshine through here. So yeah, there we go. If I do this, there we go. It's off camera here. If I can see the glare up out of the camera, then it's okay.
That's totally fine. I can see your beautiful face.
Yes, we're having a fantastic time right now. But yeah, as I try to like explain what's going on with Dabo Swinney and this year's team, I'm just more convinced that like they're going to be a semifinalist. They're going to win
Mhm.
multiple playoff games. I think they might have their P's and Q's together more than, Ohio State or maybe any of them. Like they could
Yeah.
seriously win it all. I feel like they're not afraid. I think Ohio State's not doing a spring game. We know Texas isn't. A lot of other teams are not all that interested in doing it, but
Mhm.
like Clemson just seems like we're not afraid of anybody. And I think anytime you've got a team like that, maybe it was like when Saban was like had those teams with like the silent confidence and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he was about.
And Dabo just is, excuse me, Dabo's just more goofy. Like that's just really what it boils down to. Like he is the jock jam king for a reason. Like, and like I think that's what shows through in like something like this quote is like it is the same quiet confidence that Nick Saban had. It's just delivered through a different vessel who's far more goofy. Like that's really what it boils down to.
I mean, his name is what? His name is what? Christopher, I think, or no, it's whatever, William Christopher or something like that.
Let's see, Dabo Swinney. That is William Christopher Swinney. Yeah, nice job, nice
And
pull.
then Dabo is like his older brother called him Dabo for Dat Boy.
That boy, that's that boy
Dabo.
Dabo.
So yeah, imagine if you had like a nickname that was like really dumb from like you were a baby, you weren't Cody, you were known as like Pooh or like
So
but
I was just about to bring up Pooh because Chris Paul Jr., who is not Chris Paul basketball fame son, but the linebacker from Ole Miss this past season, he showed up to the combine and his name tag said Pooh Paul because that's what he goes by is Pooh. So Pooh Paul Jr. He was up there talking at the combine, and you know what? If you embrace it, more power to you. I don't think I have the confidence level to be able to embrace a nickname like Pooh.
if they call me like Buster or something or Skip or something like that or Sonny. Just
Sonny. Sonny's a hard one to recover from.
yeah, Junior, whatever it
Junior.
is.
Yeah, if you're a junior, you got to go with like the DJ, the KJ, like that type of stuff. You got to just take your first initial and the J and just go with that rather than going with junior.
Or Deuce, but you have to be cool because otherwise everybody's gonna think you're a piece of crap.
Yeah, yeah. Deuce is a high risk, high reward nickname.
And you know what? To be totally honest with you, the same principle applies to Dabo Swinney here. And I wonder what Kalen DeBoer's nickname would be.
He's definitely a Skippy, bro. You know he is. Like that's Skippy DeBoer right there.
Skip, Butch.
But
Yeah. So it don't mean enough here. I wrote about this to finish the show or finish yesterday's shift. Abbreviated, I wrote what 3 hours and had a meeting because I had other stuff going on in the morning I'd rather not talk about.
yeah, shouts to you for a hell of a day yesterday.
I almost thought my phone died last night. I'm having a hell of a week, bro.
It's not everything is coming up Bueller this week. We can say that definitively.
No, when you're at the dog park on a Monday and they're playing High Hopes by Panic at the Disco, I knew that was foreshadowing.
Ha ha.
Hey, look, I made it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we're gonna do some jailing with him, by the way. That would be
Oh yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
Who is the only difference? That would be.
Who writes sins, not tragedies? Like,
But it's better if you do, Lou Holtz.
that's right.
That's gonna be really dumb. But it's so is the Alabama quarterback controversy. Mike Rodak wrote about this for 247 Sports. He went on Paul Feinbaum. There's like a clip on there about his from his appearance on the Feinbaum show. It's so difficult figuring out who Alabama's starting quarterback is going to be between Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, and Ty Simpson.
Mhm.
Because and Kalen DeBoer has to get this right. It's so difficult. So you got Austin Mack, the guy who came over from Washington, like the former four-star,
Mhm.
knows DeBoer and Ryan Grubb's system the most. Then you have Keelan Russell, the talented five-star, coming in. Then you've also got Ty Simpson, who's been at Alabama the longest, a former five-star.
Mhm.
So it's so hard. You can go in any different direction, but it's not good. How about you unpack it? I'll kind of say where I was leaning.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's an interesting, it's almost like a turning point for like the Kalen DeBoer tenure, which is weird to say after like a year and a couple months, but like it really does feel like a turning point as to what direction this program is going to be headed. We were talking about this, kind of planning for this, and like you look at Ty Simpson. If you go with Ty Simpson, that's kind of an indictment on you as a recruiter because that means you don't really believe in Austin Mack. We've seen flashes of Ty Simpson, they haven't been very good. So like that's kind of an indictment that Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, these two high level recruits, can't beat out a guy who we've seen kind of can't play in the SEC right now. So like I'm kind of dismissing Ty Simpson just based on what we've seen, just because I don't quite believe in what I've seen to this point. Then you have Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, who we really frankly haven't seen. So they are the unknown commodity here. But one of the things we talk about on this program here is the Kalen DeBoer way and the Alabama way. And that
Yes.
feels like what's at battle here, or what's at stake here with Austin Mack versus Keelan Russell. Austin Mack is talented, and don't get me wrong, but he is not as talented as Keelan Russell, at least as in terms of as a recruiting profile. Maybe his experience, he does have 2 years in working under Kalen DeBoer, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was at Washington for a year and then came over to Alabama. So like he has more experience. Maybe that's the reason why, but there are going to be Alabama fans who look at this if Austin Mack wins the job over Keelan Russell and say, "Well, we're Alabama. We recruit 5 stars. We play 5 stars. We're not throwing 5 stars to the side, risking like if you bench a 5 star during his freshman season, there is a chance that he leaves." And I think with Kalen DeBoer, that's even more of a real chance because there are questions about whether or not he's actually wanting to coach this high level Alabama-esque talent.
The way I settled on it was like all things equal, you almost feel like you have to go with Keelan Russell because it checks both boxes.
Mhm.
It's an Alabama type of guy and it's a DeBoer type of guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You're an Alabama type of guy is Simpson, who's been there, been loyal, been a well thought of recruit. DeBoer type of guy is Mac. Mac maybe have a more athletic, maybe bigger in size than Simpson or Russell is, but Russell's like 17 and Simpson's
I,
could probably drink a beer now if he wants
yeah,
to
he's
do
been there a minute, man.
that. But it serves them to keep it incredibly close to the vest. I think we probably will get some sort of separation again. I do not think it serves Alabama to let Mack or Simpson transfer because it's razor thin. Like, and then you have
Mhm.
injuries. Like, I think either of them could start and be serviceable, but like you're kind of like limiting what your ceiling is. And more importantly, DeBoer's got to make the playoff next year or the year after because like if you go 3 years without making the playoff with largely Nick Saban's players, people are going to turn on you and you're going to become the Alabama that we grew up with like Dennis Franchione and Mike DeBose and God forbid Mike Shula.
Yeah, I was about to say, shouts to Mike Shula. Don't want that to turn out that like I don't I we don't like I'm not rooting for Alabama to fail. We were high on the Kalen DeBoer hire because he did a phenomenal job at Washington. He did a phenomenal job at Indiana. He did a phenomenal job throughout his entire coaching career. So like why wouldn't we be high on him going to one of the most prestigious programs in college football? But at the same time, we've talked about all the worrying signs and this quarterback battle is really indicative of all this. And I like what you said about Russell in that he is the blend between like he is a guy that Kalen DeBoer got there, but he's also that five-star pedigree. And also, I think if you're Kalen DeBoer and you know that timeline, you know that if you don't make the playoffs in the next 2 year, that Tuscaloosa is probably not going to be very happy with you. Like, why not give yourself? Frankly, I mean, it's twofold. It's doubly beneficial. One, there's a chance based on his pedigree that Keelan Russell is the best player of these three guys. But on top of that, you also put yourself in a position where if he comes out next year and you go 9-3 again, miss the playoff, you kind of have a little bit of leeway because you can look at it and be like, hey, we went 9-3 with a true freshman. Guess what's probably going to happen in his sophomore and his junior year? We're going to be really freaking good. And so, like, if you're Kalen DeBoer, it not only feels like the right balance that you need to strike at Alabama, but it also feels like it could buy him a little bit of grace as well.
Totally. Like all things equal, like eventually if he beats out one of them through the season, you have the ability to say, okay, we went 9-3 again. We were right there. We've got our guy. And then you also factor in by that point, the SEC will probably be to 9 games because we're going to have to figure out the new rotation. Alabama's schedule was middle of the pack, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
last year. Maybe it gets easier. Like I would venture to guess they're going to protect the Iron Bowl at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably
But I
say
mean, that game's not going to be easier. That game's going to be tougher
no,
now. So,
no, but like with rotation, like if you were to do like protect three, like you'd probably protect that. You'd probably protect third
Tennessee,
Saturday, and
yeah.
then Alabama LSU unfortunately has to go the race wayside for
Mm-hmm.
competitive purposes. You probably play Mississippi State every year.
Yeah. And I mean, totally fine.
Yeah, so like, but you're absolutely right in the sense that like if you go basically the same record with Russell, it's going to land better than going with the same record with Mac or Simpson. Unfortunately, I don't think Russell's going to start right away.
I don't either. I think it's the right choice. I don't think it's the choice that's going to be made. I firmly believe that Mac is going to be the starter at week 1 for Alabama.
I would probably lean that way. I would venture to guess Simpson probably spends one more year as a backup, doesn't play very much, saves some eligibility, and then transfers somewhere else.
Yeah, he definitely feels like he is going to be somewhere else. I mean, there is a possibility that he leaves this spring. Like, I'm not predicting that. And I don't like, I'm with you. I don't think that's good for Alabama if that happens. But there's only so much NIL money to go around. And like, if it's at a point where, like, hey, man, you're the third stringer on this depth chart, like, we're not going to pay you a whole hell of a lot of money and he can go get somewhere elsewhere, go do it, young man. Cause like, I like, thinking about the player, just the like not Alabama, just thinking about the player, like that's probably what's best for Ty Simpson.
I mean, at this point, if he transfers, the best he could probably do is Maryland to go play for Mike Loxley,
Yeah.
maybe. But even at that point, maybe you just do go down to G5 and see if you can start somewhere.
Go to BC. Go play with Bill O'Brien again.
That's true. I was trying to sit there. I'm thinking like, there's got to be somebody that like I'm like Sark. No, he's in the NFL. No, Tommy Reese. No, he's in the NFL. It's like where are we?
The
Yeah,
Alabama pipeline going to the NFL screws these transfers a little bit.
it's a little wild here. I guess that the last thing I've kind of got here, maybe if you got anything else, is I remember writing about this about a month or so ago, back when I was dog sitting at the house that stank. Um, I remember distinctly around that time, Keelan Russell, I think he was talking to Pete Nakos on 3.
Mhm.
And he was saying like he was ecstatic about Alabama getting Ryan Grubb back. He's like, oh, he was so good at Washington. And he did really well with Geno Smith and everything at Seattle. Like seems like Keelan Russell, who I think may have like reclassify potentially, but like he's very young. I don't think he's even 18 at this point. I think he's 17. For him to be that self-aware and knowing what Ryan Grubb is all about, like
Yeah.
that leads me to believe that maybe the learning curve for him is not going to be as steep as it is with others. Like I feel like his opportunity to start right away is much greater than maybe I gave it credit for.
And I definitely think that's in the case. And I definitely think that's a possibility, excuse me. And like, I think we've already seen Kalen DeBoer's willingness because like Ryan Williams is a great player, but also like it takes some stones to start a 17-year-old wide receiver in the SEC. Like, that's not an easy decision to make if you're a head coach. Like, no offense to Kirby. I think Kirby's a better coach than DeBoer, but like I don't see Kirby out here starting 17-year-olds at like very important positions, specifically wide receiver one. So like you look at that and that shows me that DeBoer is willing to just get the best talent on the field. And like, I do think that one thing I will give DeBoer credit for, I don't think this quarterback competition is going to be what we're talking about with like the his guys versus Alabama guys. Like, I think he's going to put whoever is the best quarterback and whoever runs this offense the best on that field. Like, I truly believe that. Now, that doesn't take into account upside, which I'm not sure he's going to take into account either. But during the spring and fall camp, whoever's running the offense the best, that's who's going to get the job. It's not going to be a political decision from DeBoer.
100%. So I'm looking at his playing career. I'm trying to remember what. Okay, DeBoer was a wide receiver. Okay, so that makes sense. I was sitting like it's. I don't think he's a quarterback. So
Yeah,
maybe that puts like Ryan Williams out there. He's like, I trust you. It's the same reason why Kirby Smart is going to empower Malachi Starks as a true freshman. Keely
right.
Ringo as a redshirt freshman, didn't play his freshman year because he was hurt. KJ Bolden last year. So maybe that's in play. Um, I think the other thing with I had like the best point about this, and I'm gonna forget it. It's gonna be so bad. Um, I think I think also though, yeah, I think the fact that Penix is such a marvel
Mhm.
and everybody loved him so much at Indiana and Washington now by Atlanta Falcons, I think that carries a lot of weight with quarterbacks when to play for DeBoer.
No, 100%. Like, Penix has a cool factor. He had it in college. He still has it in the NFL. And like, when when Penix was in the Heisman race, when Penix was taking Washington to the playoff in the national championship game, like that's all people like athletes were talking about. Athletes were marveling at Penix. Like Penix has a cool factor that I think we might underrate sometimes because like he had a big effect on that and like by proxy that's going to be an effect on DeBoer and now that he has Grubb back, I think a positive impact on the Alabama program as a whole.
100%, totally agree with that. And I wonder, we know that Kalen DeBoer is all about he's all about biscuits, not bagels anymore.
That's right.
But how do you think he spells 10? Does he spell it Tin or Ten?
TIN10 baby.
Yeah. Moving on to the second half of our show, Cody came up with this great idea for this segment. 10 college programs we are the most intrigued about heading into spring practice. I think this is going to be fantastic because it's going to be all over the place. I don't know if we're gonna have the same rankings anywhere. We'll probably have some of the same teams. We'll probably have teams that we don't agree with at all.
Yeah, and that's the fun of it is, we've done a few of these TIN10 segments where we're ranking things, and like a lot of our lists have been pretty damn similar, quite frankly. And so like this, we get a little variety. We get to talk about some more teams than we have previously.
That sounds great. So I'm gonna start because this might piss you off. So here's who I've got at 10. Number 10, I have Texas.
Okay,
I figured they might be higher up on there for you. For
they're
me,
not on
it's
my
it
list, brother. I'm not
wonderful.
intrigued at all.
I think that makes me feel better. I'm like, this is all about maybe seeing what Arch Manning can do, but if there's no spring game, it's just like going to be a bunch of clandestine BS and like just a lot of spin zone from Sark, which I think will give us good quotes, good content to build around. But like, there's a lot more bigger teams out there that I think offers a greater level of intrigue than Texas. Although I think the seeing if Arch can be as good as advertised, that intrigues me a little bit.
That intrigues me, but that like you said, like they're not having a spring. Like I don't know how much we would actually learn from that in the spring, quite frankly. And outside of Arch, like I don't really have a whole hell of a lot of questions about Texas. Like I know they're going to be good on defense. I know they're going to be good on offense. Like it's just it's an Arch Manning question, which I don't think we're going to get answered in the spring. So that's why they're not on my list. It's like I don't have a lot of questions that I want answered by this.
I think that's a maybe a. I was sitting there thinking like, oh, maybe I have him towards the top. I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm not even having him on the list, and you don't. So who do you have at 10?
So at 10, I have Florida State. And I'm intrigued because you bring in Thomas Castellanos, you're coming off the 2-win season, like, and you're bringing in Gus Malzahn. I want to see what the hell this is going to look like. Like, I understand we're not getting a spring game here either, but like, even in terms of practice reports, like, I'm intrigued to see like is this like I want to get the vibe of if we're heading toward like a reclamation season for Florida State or if we're heading toward like abject disaster with Gus Malzahn as the offensive coordinator. Like I'm fascinated with this Florida State team. I don't think they're going to be great by any stretch of the imagination, but like in terms of like college football sicko fascination, hell yeah, I want to see what happens with the Knowles.
They were number 11 for me. I almost had them in there. If they had a spring game, they're obviously not having one because Doak Campbell Stadium is getting renovated.
Right.
If they were, I think that they would have definitely probably cracked like the top top
Yeah,
eight or so.
they would have been top five for me probably if they were having a spring game, quite frankly. Like
But
that they've just made my list.
I mean, how much better do you think? I think they have to be better than 2-10. But like, what do you
Yes.
think? What do you think they go to a bowl game next year?
I think so. I
Yeah,
like got like we talk and I think deservedly so. We criticize Gus Malzahn quite a bit, and I think deservedly so because I think he's a fine offensive mind. I don't think he's a great offensive mind, but Gus pretty routinely, especially when he's just calling the offense and not being a head coach, like we've seen, like it's going to be functional. It might not look pretty, but it's going to be functional. And like there were a lot of times Florida State just wasn't functional last year, and they have enough talent to where functionality gets you to a bowl game.
they're going to be able to run the ball well. They're going to have a quick twitch quarterback. Receivers are going to do some stuff. It just comes down to if they can play like a defense.
Yeah, 100%.
So at number 9 for me, I mentioned them earlier. I've got the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm just intrigued by. I don't care if they're playing a spring game. I'm just excited about all the just the quotes from Venables, the John Batir, the Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle of it all. I just think that this is a program that people are waiting to see potentially collapse, or maybe they can ascend. I think that there's a lot of intrigue around this team because Oklahoma's not really been this. They're not irrelevant, but like
Yeah.
they haven't been this volatile in probably in 25 years.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. I Oklahoma was my number 11. They just missed the list, and I think partially the spring game and partially because like I'm not excited about Oklahoma. Like some of these teams I have on here because I am excited to see what it looks for, like just as much as I am intrigued. Oklahoma, I'm just like I can't get myself to a level of excitement because of what I watched last year. Like I was so disheartened by that I have a hard time getting there.
Okay, I think that's yeah, we're feeling pretty good here. Who do you have at number 9?
Number nine, I have Colorado, and it's to see what does Colorado look like in a post Shador and Travis Hunter world? Like, what does this look like? I've voiced my skepticism about Kadon Salter in Pat Shermer's offense, but like at the same time, like it's more than just that. Like, what's the vibe around this program when you lose two of college football's biggest stars? Like, how does Dion continue to be Dion when he doesn't have like the armor of one of the best quarterbacks in college football and the best player in college football, a two-way phenom and Travis Hunter? Like, I'm intrigued to see what the vibes are in Colorado.
I did not have Colorado on my list. I consider them a little bit. I don't know where I would have put them on there. My thing is like I'm not expecting very much out of them.
Yeah,
Um, they're going to be pushing for a bowl game. I don't think they're going to win 9 games again.
no,
They're going to be somewhere between 5-7 and 8-4.
yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
At number 8 for me, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm intrigued by trying to figure out if it's going to be Gunnar Stockton or Ryan Puglisi. I also think that Kirby is going to make it a big deal that we're going to be doing a spring game. Maybe they'll cancel it on the spot. Low-key, I unintentionally cursed somebody the other day. I was talking about David Johansen of the New York Dolls, and he passed away the next day.
That's tough, bro. R.I.P.
Yeah, yeah, the Buster Poindexter, and he's also the ghost from Christmas Past and Scrooged.
Yes.
Feeling hot, hot, hot. But I think also the other thing with Georgia is I want to see like if the defensive staff gets like more cohesion there. I want to see Glenn Schumann be more than the Ben Roethlisberger you have at home. I want to see how T-Rob is going to do in this role. I want to see what happens like when there's a guy who came to Georgia to essentially play for Mike Bobo in the offense, whether that be Stockton, especially Puglisi, probably. I think that Georgia has a bit. It's like because there's not as many as I'm intrigued about as others, but I think there's enough intrigue with Georgia with a massive brand that like they at least got to be on the list for me.
I did not have Georgia on my list, not because I'm not intrigued, because I think everything you just mentioned is super intriguing. I don't know. That they just didn't. My gut tells me that it's going to be Gunnar Stockton, and like I don't think there's much like I don't think it's going to be a long battle. Like I think it's entirely possible that Gunnar Stockton has won the job by the time the spring ends. Like I don't think it's
Yeah,
a long quarterback battle. So when I look at it that way, I guess that like diminishes some of my intrigue personally.
go dogs.
Go dogs, man.
Who do you have at 8?
So at eight, I've got the Auburn Tigers. And Auburn is going to be my sick fascination this year. If you haven't already picked up on that, like obviously best wishes to Hugh Freeze. We hope the cancer recovery. I don't know what that's going to mean for the sidelines at Auburn, but he built this roster to compete this year, and I think that's very clear. You're bringing in Jackson Arnold. You're bringing in some of the high level skill position recruits that you have. You're hitting the transfer portal hard. We know that Auburn's defense has still been good despite all the trials that they face in recent years. And so when you look at this entire picture, this is a team that I think could has the potential to make the playoff, like legitimately. And I'm not trying to like blow too much smoke up there, but like, and I'm not like guaranteeing that by any stretch of the imagination. But I do like when it comes to the spring, I want to see how close we are to that. And I want to see how this program's operating with Hugh Freeze dealing with everything that he's dealing with. Like there's a lot going on at Auburn. Some of it sad in the case of Hugh Freeze, but also there's some of it that is in terms of just the football, like I'm intrigued to see what this looks like and I have high hopes for it.
I had Auburn at 12.
Okay.
Like I think that they're a little more unified with what they want to do than Oklahoma. I think they're both
Yeah.
kind of chaotic. And I think that's why Auburn's going to win about 8 games. I think there's a chance that they could upset Georgia or Alabama at home this year. I think that that's within the realm of possibility. I think that well, I don't think Jackson Arnold's good at all, but I know Hugh Freeze is a good coach.
Yeah.
I also think that we're going to see the defense play really hard for DJ Durkin, very high compensated. Again, this is a guy who has head coaching experience, albeit another deplorable human being from what happened in Maryland. But I
Yes.
think Auburn Auburn's going to be a lot better. But like I just that doesn't intrigue me. Just basically, it's like I think Jackson Arnold kind of sucks.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Jackson Arnold's better than Peyton Thorne? Because that's the big question.
I mean. You know that 70s show where Michael Kelso's dad says like explain what we did for a living, where like he does this, makes the chart move a little bit. That's it.
I mean, hey, you know what? At least the chart's moving a little bit.
The chart's moving a little bit. Number 7 for me, I've gotten the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think that they're going
Mm,
to be hot button topic here. Again, this doesn't necessarily matter if they have a spring game. I want to see if Dylan Raiola develops his own personality for the first time because people in his locker room are going to be they're going to hold him accountable. This is also the Matt Rule pop year where like you either win 10 games or you get fired.
mhm.
It's also the first full year with Dana Holgerson as the OC. No more Marcus Satterfield nonsense. And I'm not really ruling out the possibility of Nebraska potentially getting that Indiana spot, competing with the likes of what Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, maybe Washington, Michigan State, USC, something like that.
Yeah, no, so we actually matched on one, dude. I have Nebraska at 7 as well.
Yes.
I'm super intrigued by this Nebraska team. Like we've seen, like the cancellation of the spring game obviously sucks, but like much like with Oklahoma, we're going to keep getting quotes from Matt Rule, and also like I think that we're going to hear quite a bit out of practice from this team, but not just from Matt Rule, but like I think there's going to be a lot of conflicting information about Dylan Raiola and like how he's progressing, what's going on there. The offense has a completely new look. I'll talk on that in a little bit in another segment that we have coming. But like the offense is going to look completely different, and Raiola is kind of the constant there. And so what that looks like, and in theory, based on what we know about Matt Rule, this should be a year where Nebraska starts to really pop. Like we're talking 8, 9, 10 wins. Like that's what the expectation should be for Nebraska. And to kind of see where they are on that trajectory, like I'm super intrigued by it.
I don't know if they play Illinois, but whoever wins that game, if they do play, that's going to be a litmus test for the upper echelon of the Big Ten. So
Yeah,
glad we
definitely.
finally agreed on here. Number 6, I've got the Miami Hurricanes.
Dude, we matched again.
Yes, this is all about Carson Beck because there's no team in the top 25 rankings. I'm all over the place with. I think I had them at 21. If Beck is healthy, I'd have no problem putting them at like 13.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah. Obviously Mario Cristobal recruits very well. Doesn't call plays or do much or anything. Shannon Dawson I think is really good at his job as an OC. So if Miami plays up to the standard they did a year ago, I think they could challenge Clemson in the ACC championship, maybe get there instead of Louisville. I don't think they're better than Clemson, but like they become playoff viable if Beck is healthy and focuses more on throwing completing passes as opposed to losing cars.
Car security, man. It's important down in Miami, apparently. Shouts to Coral Gables always. But no, I mean, you're right. This is literally a Beck ranking, honestly. Like, I know Miami's talented. I know, and I will say the one other aspect I'm intrigued by is to see like, and it's the spring, so you're not going to see too much of it, but like to get some glimpses of what this new look defense looks like, just because like the defense was such a problem for the Hurricanes last year. And then you throw in the back equation, like you're right, Miami talent wise they are the best chance, like they have the best chance in the ACC to take down Clemson. Like you're higher on Louisville than me. I'm still high on Louisville. You're just slightly higher, but like I still think there's a very large chasm between what Louisville's capable of and what Clemson is capable of. And Miami is kind of the team stuck in the middle there, and I could see them oscillating either closer to Louisville or closer to Clemson. And so the spring getting kind of a look where Beck is health wise and seeing where that defense is in terms of not being a saloon door, that would be great.
That'd be incredible if we if we if well, I don't know, people in Athens would be mad, but it'd be amazing if we matched number five. At number five, I have Michigan.
I also have Michigan at number five.
And I think it's for all the same reasons. This is all about Sherrone Moore and Bryce Underwood. I want to see if this is Sherrone Moore's team or not. If it doesn't look like it, and he's basically being submissive to the yesteryear of Jim Harbaugh, then I'm going to punt on Michigan faster than you
Yeah,
can say Tom Brady. Like,
100%.
but they sent a lot of guys to the NFL. You've got four players who potentially could go in the first round. We know that Mason Graham and Will Johnson are locks. I would probably say that Kenneth Grant is probably a lock to go in the first round as well. And then Colson Loveland's on the fence.
Yeah.
Michigan's having a spring game. Sherrone Moore seems pretty adamant about doing it. Again, Michigan's got a stronger identity than they're doubling down on who they are.
hmm
But again, I have to see if this is Sherrone Moore's team or not.
No, and I think that makes complete sense. I also think that you mentioned Bryce Underwood, who I've told you I'm getting dangerously high on starting to believe in Bryce Underwood, and like if he's the starting quarterback, I'm gonna get over my skis when it comes to Michigan. I'll go ahead and just lock that in. But like the spring is a chance for me to get over my skis because if Bryce Underwood comes out there and it's just like holy hell, this is the second version of Cam Newton that we've seen in college football. I might just go buy like Michigan gear and just start becoming a Michigan fan for the 2025 season.
That's gonna suck so much for me personally, but God bless you. But also, if speaking of skiing, I think Jim Harbaugh would have been a villain in like ski school or
Oh,
something.
100%. Like an 80s like teen movie. He's the bully on the ski hill.
Yeah, his name's like Chet
Oh,
Miller.
he's a Chet for sure.
I found out my friend's dad or my friend's like father, his first name was Chesterfield. I'm like, are you serious?
Did he go by Chesterfield or did he have another name?
I mean, he was the third, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask. I'm gonna have to ask her again when I say out there
You know,
again.
back to the name thing, you can call like a second in the family. That can be Deuce or Junior or whatever. Third, do you go Trey? Is that what you go there?
Trey, Trip, maybe you go by Bubba, maybe you could,
But everyone goes by Bubba, man.
Buddy,
But
Chet, Chest, Fields, Fieldy.
I'm gonna call you Chet. Why? You just look like a Chet. I don't know what to tell you.
We're going by Turf.
That's
Just in the middle. That's unfortunate. And I would be really impressed if we get number four right. Like, number four, I've got Notre Dame.
I do not have Notre Dame on my list, so that's where the run
Okay.
stops.
Damn, that would have been amazing. But I'm just intrigued to see how they go about, replacing Al Golden. I'm intrigued by Steve Angeli at quarterback, seeing what Jeremiah Love can do, in a much more bigger role. I think he might be the best returning running back in college football.
Yeah.
If I think about it, they might be missing somebody, but I would also see like, this is do you have a national title hangover? We've seen teams struggle with that. Alabama didn't make the playoff after 21.
Mhm.
TCU didn't make a bowl game after 22. Washington pulled back last year. Maybe Notre Dame's up. We'll see.
We'll see. And like Notre Dame was 12 on my list, so like I am intrigued. It's not a lack of intrigue. It's just I'm confident enough in Marcus Freeman that like I don't necessarily have some of those doubts of them pulling back. Like the question is the quarterback, obviously, but like I also liked what I saw from Angeli, so like I'm not terribly worried about that. And if CJ Carr beats him out for the job, then that's even better because I mean CJ Carr is probably pretty damn good. So
Good for him, bad for Michigan. This is false start. Who you
yeah.
have it for?
I went full homer, North Carolina, and
I had a feeling.
yeah, I mean, I had to put him up here, but I mean, like, how can you not be intrigued by this? Like, Bill Belichick is coaching college football. Bill Belichick is going to be coaching a spring game. Bill Belichick wore something other than a hoodie to open up spring practice this week. Like, we're in a new era of North Carolina football, and I don't know what the hell to do with my hands when I'm like watching all of this. Like, I don't think this team's going to be good. I don't think they have the talent to be that good. But like, Belichick is already instituting some Patriot way type stuff. I don't know if you saw that, like he's not putting names on the spring jerseys. Like you have to earn your name on your jersey, just like to build that camaraderie, have faith in the logo. Very Patriots hokey, made for TV movie type of BS. But like I'm here for it. I want to see how it works. Maybe it goes up in flames. Maybe it fails spectacularly. Even if it does, it's still going to be intriguing.
Yes, I think I had North Carolina at like 13. They're one of my first
Yeah,
four out. Yeah, but they're not going to be one of the first four out, Joe Lenardi. I hope not.
I hope to God not. I'll be in shambles.
We are living our life on the bubble right now.
That's right. It's not fun, I'll tell you that.
No, sir. My biggest thing is I don't think they've got the players right now. I don't think the team's going to be good, but everything else, you are right, though. It is intriguing. That's really what I've got to say about
Yeah,
it.
they definitely don't have the players. Like, let's be clear. This is not a good football team.
It's like an AAF team, but it's coached by Bill Belichick.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean, you know what? I'll tune in.
I tuned in for that too. At number three for me, I've got Penn State.
I also have Penn State at 3.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Very intrigued to see what Jim Knowles does with the defense. Want to see Drew Aller take a step up because I mean I think he's the better version of JJ McCarthy, but I have him tied to JJ McCarthy because I also don't really believe in JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Drew Aller not stop being Aaron Murray and be like Aaron Murray his final year and like beat South Carolina. Um, I'm intrigued to see. Oh yeah, the running back, with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Those the other two. I think Love is probably a little bit better than both, but
Yeah.
like that's interesting to me. Hopefully we see what happens if they develop a wide receiver core. I also would be intrigued to see what happens, how James Franklin's going to handle being, a front runner. Maybe
Mhm.
this works out for him because we know he doesn't do very well as an underdog.
No, so you raised a lot of good points, and first off, like my first thing that I'm intrigued by is Knowles, like you said. But you talk about how James Franklin handles being a front runner. Well, to this point, what we've seen him do as a front runner is go and steal Ohio State's defensive coordinator. So I'm very intrigued to see what the next step of that is. The other part is I don't have a whole lot of questions about what Penn State's going to be. Like, I think we kind of know. We've seen this quite a bit, like with Drew Aller, Allen, and Singleton. The defense is still going to be good even after losing Abdul Carter. You're returning quite a bit there. But I look at this and I think one of the reasons they climb up to 3 in terms of me being most intrigued is what you mentioned, kind of like what they do at receiver. I'm not just looking at spring camp and spring practice to see who emerges from that. Like if anyone like breaks out. I'm also intrigued by the spring portal because I have a gut feeling that Penn State's going to go big game hunting with James Franklin as a front runner to try and get like answer the questions at wide receiver.
100% right there with you. I would be intrigued if we have the same two in the
I
top
think we
two.
might. I think we might.
I think we might, maybe a different order. At number two, I've got Ohio State.
Okay, I have Ohio State at 1. Do you have Alabama at 1?
Yes.
I have Alabama at 2. So we do have the same two, just in a
Okay.
different order.
Okay. Um, I would say Ohio State just loses so much.
Yes.
Matt Patricia is like co-defensive coordinator. You have two co-offensive coordinators with what Brian Hartline calling plays and Keenan Bailey basically doing the Brian Hartline role. I forget who the other DC is. It's like the safeties or defensive backs coach. I'm blanking on his name. It's with Patricia. And then you've got to figure out the quarterback situation. It's probably going to be Julian saying maybe Lincoln Kienholz pushes him. Obviously, I don't think Tavian St. Clair is really ready at this point. Jeremiah Smith, we're going to see him be the best player in college football, probably win the Heisman next year. um, and then we'll try to figure out like what do you do on defense? You lose like Jack Sawyer, JTT, whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of questions about this team. Tim Walton is the name we were
Yes.
looking for there. Shouts to the Google machine, always having our back. But no, like, it really does come down to how much they lost and how they're going to replace that because you have a stud on each side of the ball with Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. Like, frankly, two of the top five players in college football, just generally. Like, they are that good. That's not just us blowing smoke because they play for Ohio State. They could play at freaking Southern Miss, and they would still be two of the five best players in college football. But around those two guys, hell of a lot of question marks. Like the offense didn't just lose a quarterback and both the running backs and several wide receivers. They're also losing a lot of their offensive line, like Josh Simmons, Seth McLaughlin, Donovan Jackson. Like you're replacing a lot there. One of the big criticisms about Ryan Day has been his lack of ability to recruit offensive line at an elite level. And so, what that translates to, especially if you're trying to break in a new quarterback in Julian Sand, who I also assume is going to be the guy, there's a lot of questions about this team. Again, we rank Ohio State highly because we believe like they're coming off a national championship. They've earned our respect and like they've earned the right to be given the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't erase the questions about them.
Also, the topic of offensive line, I recall that Justin Fry left. I forgot where. He's the new offensive line coach for the Arizona Cardinals.
Sure. Hell yeah.
I am getting very, very high in the Arizona Cardinals next year. I think they'll
Yeah,
win the NFC
absolutely.
West. Yeah.
I could absolutely see it, especially if, the Seahawks trade DK Metcalf for reasons I'm unsure of.
And I'm down on the Rams, and God knows what the 49ers are doing.
They're cutting everyone, apparently.
Yeah. The screeching weasel that is John Lynch. Boogada, boogada, boogada.
They're just like they're traded Debo Samuel. There's like a weird rumbling that they might trade Brandon Ayuk too after they just signed him to this deal, and then you're gonna pay Brock Purdy $60 million. Let me go ahead and tell you, I'm not gonna be high on a team that operates in that manner.
I'm just praying for Kenny Singh's mental health.
Oh my
Shout out to
God.
shout out to our colleague Kenny. He wrote like I think every day last summer he wrote about Brandon Ayuk rumor, and then he started up and he linked back to every single one that he wrote because it's become an inside joke.
It's incredible. Like it was one of the funniest paragraphs I've ever seen because it was like basically just highlighted all blue because of all the links in there. Incredible stuff.
100%. And then I have Alabama. I think we've kind of already touched on the quarterback battle is probably the most intriguing. I would say one of the most intriguing in the country. I think it is for me. We're also dubious. Like, okay, Kalen DeBoer, are you gonna make this happen or not?
Hmm.
There's a lot of pressure. I feel like he might even be facing like more pressure than anyone this year in some ways.
No, absolutely. And then like you throw in like not only does is it Alabama when the pressure that comes with that, but you're also like there's a reason there are high hopes for Ryan Grubb reuniting with Kalen DeBoer. Like they did a lot of really good things together at Washington, and so like yes, that's positive, but yes, that adds pressure as well. And like I think the other thing that I'm intrigued by when I look at Alabama is whoever is quarterback it's probably going to look a hell of a lot different than it did with Jalen Milroe because they're none of those quarterbacks are what Jalen Milroe is as a quarterback. So like seeing what that offense looks like in a new with a new look, and also like with that new look, one of the underrated things about Washington with Michael Penix was they had a pretty damn strong running game to like complement that. Like Alabama's run game hasn't been quite what Alabama's run game was in the 2010s essentially for quite some time. And so when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at a new quarterback coming in. I'm just excited to see or intrigued, I guess is the better word as that we're in the operative word that we're using here. I'm intrigued to see what that offense looks like with all the changes that are going to undergo that it's going to undergo.
100%. You're going from a quarterback that could run pretty well to three guys that don't. So maybe look more like Penix did back in the
Yeah,
day.
which
So
that's not a bad thing.
that is not a bad thing. So before we move on from something positive to something negative, let's recap our 10 each and then move on. So you go first.
Okay, so at 10, I have Florida State. At 9, I have Colorado. At 8, I have Auburn. At 7, I have Nebraska. At 6, I have the Miami Hurricanes. At 5, I have Bryce Underwood in Michigan. At 4, I have North Carolina because I'm a homer. At 3, I have Penn State. At 2, I have Alabama. And at 1, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes.
All right. And at 10, I've got Texas. 9, Oklahoma. That's Oklahoma's only victory over Texas this year. At 8, I've got the homer pick. At 8, I got the homer pick of Georgia. 7, Nebraska. 6, Miami. 5, like Michigan, all with Cody on the line there. 4, I've got Notre Dame. 3, Penn State. 2, Ohio State. 1, Alabama.
Nice.
Nice. Um, and I think when Dan Lanning does practice and somebody doesn't make a tackle at Oregon spring game, it's amazing we didn't mention them at all because you're doing great, sweetie. I don't think there's a player who had a worse combine than Tez Johnson. It's and again, like I'm a kind of a known Oregon hater. I thought this is a player that everybody in the NFL would have wanted. He's came up small, was very slow. I mean, like a 4.51,
Mhm.
bigger, stronger, faster wide receivers outpaced him. And then he said something to the tune of just the dumbest thing I've heard an Oregon player say since Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the fact that, you don't think Ohio State beat you that bad, basically, in the college football playoff, brother. I watched the game. You got your ass kicked. Like you got your ass kicked up and down that field, and so like that's bad. But honestly, the combine. Okay, first off, he's 154 pounds. Like the there's one receiver in the NFL who can even like come close to that, and that's Tank Dell. And Tank Dell is an outlier who's been hurt basically every season that he's been in the NFL. Love Tank Dell. I think he's a fun player to watch, but like he is the outlier in this. Like Tez Johnson is going to have to be another outlier based on how he tested because if you show up at 154 pounds and you're not running in the 4.3s, like you're absolutely just killing yourself in terms of your draft stock.
100%. And like, Tank Dell, ironically, this game's Tank. He played at Houston, but Houston was still in the American, the group of five. That's a
Yeah.
different level. He's overachieving. I understand that Tez Johnson eventually transferred over to Oregon. The thing is at the podium, it's like you got your ass kicked.
Hmm.
Everybody knew it, and this is not how you go about it. Also, the fact that your adoptive brother is Bo Nix, who has been trained and groomed his whole life to be a quarterback. I don't think he would say anything like that. And I understand these are two different people. They just happen to like live together at some point, go to college together. You would think that like the PR training that your brother had would trickle down to you, and you wouldn't say something that makes you look like Kayvon Thibodeau, being like, "Oh yeah, some people just want to go to Oregon because it's all about the fashion and stuff, as opposed to like the winning championships." Like, you gotta be more self-aware than this, man.
And he's very clearly not. And like I think the lack of self-awareness also shows in his combine time because and like participating in the combine because if I'm Tez Johnson and I know I'm gonna run in the 4.5s, there's no way in hell I'm running a 40 at the combine because going into the combine, even with his size concerns, people knew he was small. There were still people who were willing to take him in the third round, it seemed like that seemed like a conversation that was being had because let's be clear, he was good at Oregon. Like
Oh yeah,
he was an absolute weapon for that offense. But now you're looking at like a round 5 pick at best that you're talking about here. Absolutely hurt himself. And so like I'm looking at all this and it is it's not good for Tez Johnson. It's not a good look for Oregon, and it kind of speaks to some of your criticisms of the Oregon program. Like it just feels like they can't kick a little brother mentality, honestly.
no, it's they're not keeping the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I understand that you got to create a brand. You're in a state that does not have that has 3 million people.
Hmm.
Most of them live in the Portland Metroplex in the northern part of the state. You got to get people that want to come and play here. You can recruit Northern California, but to do this, you have to create a national brand. You can use Nike. This is why Oregon, prior to Mike Bellotti, was not a blue blood.
Hmm.
And I'm just getting so tired of putting them in the same group of teams that like that have been down and haven't won. Like, even though it's been what like 20 something years since Tennessee last won a national championship, I think they've got their P's and Q's better figured out than Oregon with this.
Hmm.
Nebraska too, like I mean, like Nebraska's won more recently than them at a highest level. Like, they actually won national championships,
Right,
but
exactly.
like you gotta if Dan Lanning wants to make this program, and I believe in Dan Lanning, they gotta get more mentally tough.
Yeah, they
And I
absolutely do. And like, frankly, just hand like I feel like one of the reasons Bo Nix and like we know that I'm a critic of Bo Nix. Like that's not hidden knowledge. I'm not going to hide that fact. But one thing I will say about Bo Nix that definitely felt different this year for this year's Oregon than it did under Bo Nix is Bo Nix felt like a professional in the room. And I think that's one of the things that like when you look at a lot of the programs who are winning national championships, like you look at Ohio State this past year, you look at Michigan the year before. there's a level of professionalism that comes with those teams. Like JJ McCarthy, think what you will about of him as a quarterback, he holds himself like a
Oh yeah.
professional. You look at Will Howard and all like the Ohio State team, like outside of Jack Sawyer trying to fight the entire Michigan roster, they handled themselves like professionals like throughout that entire run, throughout all the criticism. Even Ryan Day to some degree handled himself like a professional. Oregon does not seem to have that level of professionalism. Like I would like Dan Lanning, there are speeches that will make me want to run through a wall. And I like there is value in that. But there is also sometimes when I look at Dan Lanning and I'm like, are you the adult in the room? Because sometimes I'm not quite sure that's the case.
There are games like his, what, 2 years ago where they just absolutely slaughtered Colorado. Like, I want to see that. I know they're
Yes.
capable of that, but we saw them, get their ass kicked by Ohio State at the Rose Bowl, and we also saw them get destroyed by Georgia and I guess it was still the Chick-fil-A kickoff at that point. I don't think they
Yeah.
flipped to Aflac a couple years ago, but we've seen like we've seen both, and
Hmm.
both are still fresh into my mind. Maybe Nick's kind of was more professional. I know you've interviewed Dylan Gabriel in the past. This isn't like a slight on him or anything like
No,
that,
no, no,
but
no, no. I
no,
just
but
like and he was super cordial, professional. Like he handled himself well, to be clear. It's just Bo Nix has more of an aura than I think Dylan Gabriel does, which is not Dylan Gabriel's fault. Let's be clear.
no, for sure. So I guess I'll tie a bow on this before we get to our last topic here is Tez Johnson, I felt like was a guy that size didn't matter. Every team was going to want to take him in the third or fourth round.
Hmm.
Now I feel that like it's a fifth round option and maybe only like half the teams are interested.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like there are guys that are going to look at the 154 and just be like, yeah, we're going to cross that guy off because he's going to get broken in half.
Yes, and we're gonna break this in half here, with a comma, with some definitely, maybe. Finishing show up. Haven't done this here in a while. We each picked three teams that definitely maybe might be good. I picked six in case we double up because there's a chance we hit three in a row there on a very difficult one. That was
Yeah,
impressive.
I was not expecting that to be the case.
No, so who is your first candidate for definitely maybe? I guess before we start, is like this is a team that will be on the fringe of maybe making the playoff, but probably not doing it.
Yeah, and like I probably went a little lower on the spectrum. Like it would be a surprise to see any of these teams in the playoffs, but like at the same time, like I think that there is a world where they can make the playoff. That's kind of how I handled it. And I think you'll see that with my first team, which is Georgia Tech. Like I don't think Georgia Tech is necessarily going to make the playoff, but I do think that they could be like if they upset Clemson, would I be that surprised? I would not. Like, but I think what really has me even questioning kind of like that ceiling is they lost Tyler Santucci, their defensive coordinator, who I thought was absolutely phenomenal last year. Like we saw him put the clamps on Miami, frankly, the way that no one else in the country put the clamps on Miami's offense last year. Like Miami's problem was their defense. Georgia Tech made it their offense and their defense. That was the problem. But you have a lot returning. You got Haynes King, you got Jamal Haynes returning in the backfield after a kind of an injury riddled 2024 season. Like I believe in what Brent Key is doing there, but I am in like I'm worried about the Santucci loss. Like that is a big loss for that program.
It is, but they still got Buster
They
Faulkner.
do.
I had Georgia Tech among one of my six as well for similar reasons. First team on here, probably not a surprise to you, Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Oh yeah, I thought you might have the Red Raiders and our boy Joey in there.
Yeah, Joey shakes babies, kisses hands, recruits very well. Baron Morton Salt's been playing in the Big 12 for a while. They've got a lot of returning talent. I figure there's a team that's somewhere in the Texas Tech Baylor range that will probably challenge the Arizona States and Iowa States, maybe even the BYUs. Like someone's going to take that Colorado spot, and I think it's going to be Texas Tech.
I can absolutely see it.
Yes. Who's your next team?
Going with another Big 12 team out of Texas, and that's Baylor. And
Yeah.
the more I think about Baylor, the more I'm kind of talking myself into them contending in the Big 12. And I didn't think I was going to get there. I was actually like coming out of the season, I was talking about Dave Aranda, and I'm still not sure Dave Aranda is a good head coach. Let's be very clear about that. But with the way Baylor ended last season, I thought, okay, maybe they're going to be this year's West Virginia. Maybe they're going to pull back. The more I look at it, the more I think about Sawyer Robertson. I think this team might be pretty damn good. I'm like, we talk about the top of the Big 12, and like there are teams we like there with Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU to some degree, and Kansas State as well. Like we like what they're made of. I still don't know how high that ceiling is for all of those teams, though. And if Baylor can reach that ceiling, if they have a game changer quarterback, which Sawyer Robertson showed flashes of being last year, I think there's a chance that Baylor could like swoop in and potentially win the Big 12.
Yeah, like Texas Tech and Baylor occupy the same spot. We're on the
Yeah,
same different
100%.
side of the
Like it's a
coin.
very similar conversation.
Yeah, I did not have Baylor among the same list, but it's they're in that group as well. The next team that I'm going to have probably not a surprise to you. That's the Louisville Cardinals.
Oh yeah, yeah. I purposely did not put Louisville on my list so you could talk about your cards.
Jeff Brom's a fantastic head coach. He's made Louisville feel a lot less slimy
Hmm.
because I think he's a good dude. Miller Moss showed signs of promise there at USC. I think just the chaos that is over there in Los Angeles needs to go to a better, more well-run operation. Miller Moss, I don't know if he's as talented as Aiden O'Connell, but I could see them playing
Hmm.
similarly. Like Aiden O'Connell was really great for Jeff Brom there at Purdue.
Yeah.
If Louisville can play any defense at all, I expect them to contend in the ACC for that spot to face Clemson, whether that would be with Miami, whether that would be with Georgia Tech, whether that would be with SMU.
No, I mean it. I like Miller Moss. I specifically really like Miller Moss with Jeff Braun because Jeff Brom has had a lot of good quarterbacks, man, in college. Like he made Tyler Shuck after like 8 years finally look like a functional college quarterback last year. So like very high on what Miller Moss can do because you talk about the transition from USC. Like not only are you kind of getting away from the chaos of the Lincoln Rally of it all, but you're also going into an environment where you're under substantially less pressure, which I think plays to his advantage.
Totally. So who is your last team?
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think Nebraska might be good, man. And here, here's why I'm talking myself into this. I look at Nebraska, and when you look at what we saw from that team last year and when they were struggling to make a bowl game, it was the offense that really hurt them. Like Dylan Raiola was a true freshman, and like the talent around him just couldn't quite like get over the hump. Like it looked like they were so close to having something offensively, but they weren't quite there. The defense was good. The defense was not a problem. Well, you look at their returning production, they're top 20, they're top 30 in returning production on the defensive side of the ball. They're outside the top 80 in returning offensive production. I think that's a good thing for Nebraska. I think you're starting to get Matt Rule's guys in here. I think you're starting to get something that's built around Dylan Raiola. And if that offense takes a step forward, I know the defense is still going to be pretty damn good. So, like, I don't know if Nebraska's going to make the college football playoff. I'm probably not there yet. But I think Nebraska might be a hell of a lot better than like a lot of people might be expecting them to be.
I mean, they could be like this year's version of what Illinois and Syracuse
Yeah,
were last year. So
exactly.
that's a good fit. That's you brought up a good point. I did not have them on here. I think you're right. The defense is solid. That's real side of the ball. Riley gets better with Holgerson. You're winning about 9 games, and you're right
Yeah,
there.
100%.
The last one I have on here, I was going to pick between the three other ones I had on here. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to go with Florida.
Hell yeah. I'm sorry for your soul for saying that, but hell yeah.
I have Florida edging out Auburn for my last one in here, and I also had Illinois, but I think Illinois is just good.
I was
So
about to say I don't think there's no definitely no maybe. I think they're just good, man.
yeah. My thought with Florida is DJ Lagway is it's gonna become obvious that he's gonna be a mega talent,
Mhm.
probably a more dependable player than Anthony Richardson was, who was a mega talent there too. I also think that Billy Napier grew as a head coach, having to deal with the pressure and the gauntlet of trying to save his job.
Yeah.
More importantly, I think he and Scott Strickler are on the same page with AD and head coach. That works out. It wouldn't shock me if Florida beat Georgia in the cocktail party. Florida's going to probably win about 8 games. Maybe if they get lucky, they can win 10.
No, I'm a like you. I've spoke glowingly about Florida about DJ Lagway, and I'm pulling up a quote right now because it reminded me. You know, you talked about how Florida galvanized around Billy Napier kind of last year. DJ Lagway actually spoke to that. He was on the on RG3's podcast, and he said he was asked about, the hot seat talk and how Florida used that. And he said it was definitely motivation because I feel like they were disrespecting our coach and disrespecting us genuinely. And like that speaks really highly of Billy Napier if you can like turn that into something positive for your team and like not just turn it into like a positive message, but actually have that message take because we saw Florida play pretty damn well down the stretch. And so like I don't know, man. I might be becoming a Billy Napier guy right before our eyes after we spent an entire season just talking trash about him the entire time.
A year ago, I was like, I'm gonna wake up and not respect you, and now I'm like, okay, I'm a little fearful for a guy who's got nothing left to lose. You know,
Yeah. He's
Florida's
real wild card out there in Gainesville.
you don't know how it feels to be me. Also, they showed a picture of Tom Petty's house where he grew up in Gainesville. It looks exactly how you think it would look.
Just Americana just coming out the ass.
Just yeah, just a split level 60s house in Florida.
Hell yes.
This was episode 156 of All Star. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter, the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. There's a 5-star sneeze. I, I, I gotta finish with this. So the Arizona State podcast does not like how loud I sneeze. Like I think I think I'm gonna die from a sneeze when I'm like 70 something.
Right.
Like
Just
it
throw out
hurts
your
me.
hip at least.
Like I'll like shatter my pelvis going down the stairs while I sneeze, and then I just die at the bottom of the stairwell.
Oh, that'd be a tough way to go, man.
I mean, it's better than going in a trash compactor.
It's true. That's true. It's true.
Oh man, but thinking about the sneeze, some of the stuff that comes out there, it's like the monster stuff from a Men in Black.
Now, dude, sneezing in a relationship is wild because like I'm also a loud sneezer because like I don't think anyone does, but I don't like sneezing. And so like I try to hold it in, which just makes my sneezes way bigger when they do come out. And then we have the NC State podcast who sneezes in fives. It's never one sneeze, it's always five. And so like it's really funny whenever we're hanging out with like a group of people who like haven't been around her when she sneezed or whatever. And so like she'll sneeze once and they'll be going to say like bless you or gesundheit or whatever. And I'm like, hold on, we've got some more coming.
Um, Rosemary and Benji are one of the same. He likes threes and she sees threes.
Hell yeah.
The secret to the galaxy lies in Orion's belt, and this is false.